My name is Victoria Castellano, and 48 hours ago, I was supposed to be celebrating my younger sister's fairy tale wedding at the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan. Instead, I woke up in Mount Sinai's trauma unit with 17 stitches in my scalp, a fractured orbital bone, and a neurologist telling me I was lucky to be alive. My father had done this to me, not in private, not behind closed doors where abuse usually lives. He attacked me in front of 300 guests under crystal chandeliers that cost more than most people's homes because I committed the unforgivable sin of saying one word. No, I refused to hand over my Seattle penthouse, a property I bought at 27 with money I earned myself, worth $2.3 million, to my sister as a wedding gift I never agreed to give. My father announced it like fact. The crowd applauded. My sister smiled that perfect practice smile, and when I stood up and said, "That's not true. I never agreed to this," my father's champagne glass hit the marble floor, and his fist hit my face. I remember the crack, the gasping, the warmth of blood running down my neck. I remember seeing a phone held high in the crowd, a little red dot glowing in the corner of the screen. Someone was streaming this live. By the time the ambulance arrived, the video had 50,000 views. By the time I reached the hospital, it had 500,000. By morning, it had 3 million views, and my father's face was on the front page of the New York Post with the headline, "Real Estate Mogul Attacks Daughter at Plaza Wedding." They wanted me silent, compliant, erased. Instead, they handed me a weapon they could never take back, undeniable, viral, documented proof. And now I'm not just protecting my penthouse, I'm taking everything they built. This is the story of how a family tried to sacrifice me for their golden child, and how I burned their empire to the ground with nothing but a law degree, a video with 10 million views, and a rage so cold it could freeze blood. They should have let me keep the penthouse. But to understand how we got here, you need to know how I became the expendable daughter in a family that worshipped only one altar. My younger sister, Isabella. I was born first, which in most families might mean something. Firstborn, heir, the one who paves the way. In the Castellano family, it meant I was the rough draft. My parents, Vincent and Claudia Castellano, built their fortune in Manhattan real estate during the boom of the early 2000s. My father started with a single brownstone in Brooklyn, flipped it, bought 2 more, then 5, then entire blocks. By the time I was 10, Castellano Properties owned 43 buildings across 3 boroughs. We lived in a penthouse on the Upper East Side with views of Central Park that people would kill for, literally. There were threats, security, a life wrapped in marble and paranoia. But the wealth came with expectations. From the moment I could talk, my father made it clear. The business was everything. Family existed to serve the empire. Loyalty meant silence, and daughters specifically existed to make the family look good. I was 7 when Isabella was born, and I remember the way my mother's face transformed when the nurse placed that pink bundle in her arms. She looked at Isabella like she was seeing color for the first time. She had never looked at me that way. Isabella was delicate where I was sturdy, soft where I was sharp. She cried prettily, with little hiccuping sobs that made adults rush to comfort her. When I cried, my father would bark, "Enough, Victoria! Castellanos don't whine!" By the time Isabella was 3 and I was 10, the pattern was set. Isabella got ballet lessons and pastel dresses and birthday parties with ponies. I got chess club and lectures about responsibility and reminders that as the older sister, I needed to set an example. When Isabella struggled with math, my parents hired a tutor and praised her for trying. When I brought home straight A's, my father would glance at the report card and say, "That's what we expect." I learned early. Excellence was my baseline. Failure was unacceptable, and no amount of achievement would ever earn me the warmth Isabella received just for existing. In high school, the divide sharpened. Isabella became homecoming princess, captain of the dance team, the girl who floated through hallways trailing admirers like a comet's tail. Teachers adored her. She volunteered at charity galas my mother organized, always photographed with that luminous smile. I was the debate team captain, the girl who stayed late in the library, who got into Columbia on a full academic scholarship and chose to study pre-law because I wanted to understand the contracts my father wielded like weapons. When I got my acceptance letter to Columbia Law, my father said, "Good. You'll join the firm after you graduate." It wasn't a suggestion, it was a command. But I had other plans. At Columbia Law, I discovered something my father had never let me feel at home. Competence. Not just competence, dominance. I graduated summa cum laude, top 2% of my class, with job offers from every white shoe firm in Manhattan. I chose Sullivan and Cromwell, one of the most prestigious corporate law firms in the world, specializing in real estate transactions. My father was furious. "You're supposed to work for me," he'd said, his voice tight with barely controlled rage over dinner at Le Bernardin. "Everything I built is for you and your sister. You're betraying the family." "I'm building my own career," I'd replied evenly. "You taught me to be self-sufficient. This is what that looks like." He'd thrown his napkin on the table and walked out. My mother stayed long enough to say, "You're breaking your father's heart, Victoria. I hope your career is worth it." It was. At Sullivan and Cromwell, I worked 100-hour weeks, sleeping in my office, surviving on coffee and takeout, clawing my way up through the ranks. I negotiated billion-dollar deals. I closed transactions other attorneys said were impossible, and at 27, I made partner. The same year, I bought my Seattle penthouse. I'd been working on a deal for a tech CEO who was relocating to the Pacific Northwest. He mentioned he was selling a property, a 2,400-square-foot penthouse in a new luxury building overlooking Elliott Bay. Floor-to-ceiling windows, private terrace, a building with a rooftop pool, and concierge service that rivaled five-star hotels. He quoted me $2.1 million. I'd saved aggressively, lived below my means despite my salary, invested smart, and I made an offer, $2.3 million, all cash, close in 2 weeks. He accepted. That penthouse wasn't just property, it was proof that I didn't need my father's empire, proof that I could build something beautiful on my own terms, proof that the daughter he dismissed as too aggressive and difficult could succeed without his name smoothing the path. I flew my parents and Isabella out for the closing, thought maybe, finally, they'd see me. My father walked through the space once, hands in his pockets, and said, "You overpaid. The building's not in a prime location." My mother said, "It's so far from family, Victoria. Why would you want to be all the way across the country?" Isabella took photos for her Instagram and said, "It's cute, Tori. Very modern." None of them said congratulations. I'd smiled tightly and poured champagne I drank alone after they left for their hotel. That should have been my first clue about what was coming. But I was young enough, hopeful enough, stupid enough to think that maybe they'd change. That maybe one day my father would look at me with pride instead of calculation. I was wrong. For the next 6 years, I built my life in 2 cities, Manhattan for work, Seattle for peace. The penthouse became my sanctuary. I'd fly in on long weekends, wake up to the sound of ferries crossing the bay, drink coffee on my terrace while seaplanes took off from Lake Union. I dated occasionally, other attorneys, a tech investor, a professor at UW, but nothing stuck. My hours were brutal, my focus razor-sharp on making senior partner before 35. Meanwhile, Isabella's life unfolded like a fairy tale scripted by my mother. She'd gone to NYU for art history, joined a sorority, graduated with decent grades and no debt because my parents paid for everything. She worked part-time at a gallery in Chelsea, more as a socialite networking opportunity than actual employment. And at 26, she met Christopher Ashford. Christopher was everything my parents had dreamed of for Isabella. Old money, Yale legacy, a trust fund that generated 7 figures annually, and a last name that opened doors across the eastern seaboard. His family owned a private equity firm, a compound in the Hamptons, and a literal seat on the board of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. My mother nearly fainted with joy when Isabella brought him to Sunday dinner. Within 6 months, Christopher proposed with a ring that cost more than most people's cars. 4-carat diamond, emerald cut, platinum band. He did it at sunset on his family's yacht while a photographer captured every angle. The engagement photos went viral on Instagram. 47,000 likes. My mother started planning the wedding immediately, and that's when I started noticing the comments. Little digs, always delivered with a smile. Victoria, you're 33 now. Aren't you worried about your biological clock? Isabella's so lucky to have found Christopher. You work so much, Tori. Men don't like women who are never available. Maybe if you spent less time in Seattle and more time building relationships, you'd have what your sister has. I'd learned to let it roll off, smile, change the subject, keep the peace. But beneath my skin, resentment coiled tighter with every passive-aggressive comment. The wedding planning consumed my family for 18 months. My mother hired a planner who'd coordinated events for actual royalty. They booked the Plaza Hotel, reserved the ballroom for 300 guests, commissioned a dress from Vera Wang, arranged for orchids to be flown in from Thailand. The budget was rumored to be close to $800,000. I was asked to be a bridesmaid, which I accepted because refusing would have caused a nuclear incident. But I was never asked about my preferences, never consulted about colors or styles or logistics. I was just expected to show up, wear the dress, smile for photos, and play my role. The message was clear. This was Isabella's day. I was scenery. I told myself I didn't care. I was busy with work. I was closing a deal for a client that would net me a $300,000 bonus. I had my own life, my own success. But there was a hollow space in my chest that widened every time my mother gushed about Isabella's dress fitting or my father approved another extravagant expense without blinking. I'd bought my penthouse with my own money. No one had offered to help. Isabella's wedding would cost nearly $1 million, and my parents were thrilled to pay. The final straw came 6 weeks before the wedding. I was in Seattle, working remotely for a few days, when my mother called. "Victoria, darling, we need to talk about your wedding gift for Isabella." I'd been planning to give a generous check, $25,000, and a weekend at a luxury resort in Tuscany. But before I could say that, my mother continued. "Your father and I have been discussing it, and we think it would be wonderful if you gave Isabella and Christopher your Seattle penthouse as a wedding gift." I actually laughed. "Mom, that's not happening." Silence on the other end. Then, carefully, "Why not?" "Because it's mine. I bought it. I live there. It's not negotiable." "Victoria," her voice turned cold. "Isabella and Christopher are starting their lives together. They're talking about moving to Seattle for Christopher's work. That penthouse would be perfect for them. You barely use it anyway." "I use it constantly, and it's not for sale. We're not asking you to sell it. We're asking you to gift it as a gesture of love for your sister." My jaw clenched. A $2.3 million gesture. Family takes care of family, Victoria. You make plenty of money. You can buy another place. No. The word came out flat. Final. My mother's voice turned venomous. "You're being selfish, as usual. Do you know how much your father and I have sacrificed for you? How much we've invested in your education, your career?" "You didn't invest in my career. I paid for law school myself, with scholarships and loans I'm still paying off. You paid for Isabella's entire life. That's not fair. Neither is asking me to hand over property I earned to someone who's never worked a real day in her life." I heard my mother's sharp intake of breath. "You will regret this conversation, Victoria." She hung up. I stood on my terrace, hands shaking with rage, and tried to tell myself it was over, that I'd set a boundary and they'd respect it. I was so naive. 2 weeks later, my father called. "Victoria, we need to discuss your gift to Isabella." "I already told Mom." I don't care what you told your mother. I'm telling you. You will transfer the Seattle property to Isabella and Christopher as a wedding gift. It will be announced at the reception. I've already had our attorney draw up the paperwork. My blood went cold. You did what? It's done, Victoria. All you need to do is sign. I'll have the documents messengered to your office. I'm not signing anything. Yes, you will. Dad, that property is mine. You have no legal right. I have every right. His voice exploded through the phone. I'm your father. I built this family. Everything you have is because of me. You owe me this. I owe you nothing. I bought that penthouse with money I earned. Money you earned using connections I gave you at a firm that hired you because of my reputation. That's not true. It's the truth whether you accept it or not. You will give Isabella that property, or there will be consequences. What consequences? I was shaking now, adrenaline flooding my system. You'll find out. He hung up. I sat at my desk at Sullivan and Cromwell, overlooking the Manhattan skyline, and felt something crack inside me. Not break, not shatter. Crack, like ice on a frozen lake when you step wrong. I'd spent my entire life trying to earn my father's respect, trying to prove I was worthy, trying to be enough, and he'd just made it clear I would never be enough. Because in his mind, I was property, an asset to be leveraged, a piece on his chessboard to move as he saw fit. The penthouse was never about the penthouse, it was about control, and I was done being controlled. I called my personal attorney, Marcus Chen, a bulldog of a lawyer who specialized in family property disputes. Marcus, I need you to lock down my Seattle property. My father's trying to force a transfer. I want every legal safeguard in place, title lock, protective order, whatever it takes. Marcus didn't hesitate. I'll have it done by end of day. And Victoria, document everything. Save every email, every text, every voicemail. If this goes sideways, you'll need evidence. It's already sideways. Then we make sure you're protected. By the end of the week, my penthouse was locked down tighter than Fort Knox. Any attempt to transfer, sell, or encumber the property would trigger immediate legal alerts and require my in-person signature with 2 witnesses and notarization. My father couldn't touch it, but he could still destroy me in other ways. The Thursday before the wedding, I received an email from my father's assistant. Mr. Castellano requests your presence at Sunday dinner to finalize wedding logistics. Attendance is mandatory. Mandatory. Like I was an employee, not a daughter. I went anyway. Stupid, maybe. But I wanted to look him in the eye and make it clear. The penthouse was mine, and no amount of manipulation would change that. The dinner was held at my parents' penthouse on the Upper East Side. The table was set with crystal and china, the kind of formal dinner that always felt more like a board meeting than a family meal. Isabella and Christopher were already there when I arrived, Isabella glowing in a cream silk dress, Christopher in a blazer that probably cost more than my monthly rent. My mother greeted me with a tight smile. Victoria, so glad you could join us. My father didn't acknowledge me at all. We sat, we ate. Conversation was stilted, forced. My mother talked about wedding details, the flowers, the band, the choreographed first dance. Isabella chimed in with breathless excitement. Christopher nodded along, the perfect supportive fiancé. I pushed food around my plate and waited for the ambush. It came during dessert. My father cleared his throat, set down his fork, and looked directly at me. Victoria, your mother and I have discussed the wedding gift situation. We've decided on a compromise. I said nothing. You'll announce at the reception that you're gifting Isabella and Christopher a year's stay at your Seattle penthouse with option to purchase at the end of the year for a reduced price. I almost laughed. That's not a compromise. That's you trying to maneuver me into giving up my property in stages. It's a generous offer. I'm not making any offer. The property isn't available, not for a year, not for purchase, not at all. My mother's face hardened. Victoria, this is your sister's wedding. Can't you be happy for her for one day?" "I am happy for her. That doesn't mean I'm handing over my home." Isabella spoke up, her voice soft, wounded. "Tori, I don't understand why you're being so selfish about this. It's just a place. I'm your sister. And it's my place that I bought with my money. But family shares. Family respects boundaries." Christopher cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should table this. Discussion for after the wedding." My father slammed his hand on the table. Crystal rattled. "There's nothing to table. This is settled. Victoria, you will announce the gift at the reception. I've already had it written into the toast schedule." "Then you'll have to change the schedule." "I will not be embarrassed at my daughter's wedding because you're too stubborn." "I'm not stubborn. I'm standing up for myself, something you've never let me do." My mother gasped. "How dare you?" "How dare I what? Tell the truth? You've spent my entire life favoring Isabella, paying for everything she wants, dismissing everything I achieve, and now you're demanding I hand over property worth millions because it would be convenient for your golden child." Isabella's eyes filled with tears. "Tori, that's not fair, isn't it? When was the last time Mom and Dad asked you to sacrifice anything? When was the last time they told you that you owed them?" My father stood, his face dark with rage. "You will do this, Victoria, or you will no longer be welcome in this family." The words hung in the air like smoke. I stood too, my legs shaking, but my voice steady. "Then I guess I'm no longer welcome." I walked out, left my coat, left my purse, walked 16 blocks in November cold to my apartment in Tribeca, and cried until my throat was raw. But I didn't break, because I'd finally said what I should have said years ago: no. And I meant it. The wedding was 2 days away. I should have skipped it, should have stayed home, sent a gift card, cut my losses. But something stubborn in me refused to be erased, refused to let them write me out of the family narrative without a fight. So I got on a plane to nowhere in my mind, bought the bridesmaid dress I was supposed to wear, and prepared to stand on that stage at the Plaza Hotel and smile while my family pretended I didn't exist. I thought the worst that could happen was humiliation. I was wrong, because my father wasn't done with me, and what he did next would change everything. The morning of the wedding, I woke up in my apartment with a knot of dread in my stomach. I'd barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my father's face across the dinner table, heard his voice promising consequences. But I told myself I was being paranoid. This was Isabella's day. My father wouldn't risk a scene at a Plaza Hotel wedding in front of 300 guests. I was so incredibly wrong. I arrived at the plaza at noon for the bridesmaid preparations. The suite my mother had rented was chaos: makeup artists, hairstylists, a photographer capturing every moment, racks of dresses, champagne flowing freely. Isabella sat in the center of it all, like a princess in her tower, her Vera Wang gown a cascade of ivory silk and lace. My mother directed traffic, snapping orders, adjusting flowers, checking timelines. She didn't acknowledge me when I walked in. None of the other bridesmaids spoke to me either. They'd clearly been briefed. I was the black sheep, the selfish sister, the one who'd ruined everything by refusing to play along. I got dressed in silence, let the makeup artist do her work, stood still while someone pinned my hair into an elaborate updo that felt like a crown of thorns. In the mirror, I looked perfect, polished, empty. The ceremony was at 3 p.m. in the plaza's ballroom, a space dripping with gold leaf and crystal. 300 guests filled the chairs, the air thick with perfume and wealth. I stood on the stage with the other bridesmaids and watched Isabella walk down the aisle on my father's arm, watched her smile at Christopher like he was the answer to every dream. My father's expression was proud, tender, everything he'd never shown me. The ceremony was flawless. Vows were exchanged, rings slipped on, the kiss met with applause and camera flashes. And then the reception began. That's when everything fell apart. The ballroom had been transformed for dinner, round tables covered in white silk, Centerpieces of white orchids and roses, soft lighting that made everything glow. I was seated at a table with distant cousins who made polite conversation and avoided eye contact. My father gave the first toast, a rambling speech about legacy and love and building futures. He talked about how proud he was of Isabella, how Christopher was the son he'd always wanted, how this union represented everything the Castellano family stood for. He didn't mention me once. Then came the moment I'd been dreading. My father clinked his glass with a spoon. The room fell silent. "Before we continue the celebration," he said, his voice booming across the ballroom, "I have a special announcement. My daughter Victoria has prepared a gift for Isabella and Christopher that represents the true meaning of family." My stomach dropped. He was doing it. He was actually doing it. "Victoria," my father continued, turning to look directly at me, "would like to give her sister and brother-in-law her Seattle penthouse as a wedding gift, a property valued at $2.3 million, bought with her own hard work, a gesture of love and sisterhood." The crowd gasped, then erupted into applause. I sat frozen, my face burning, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. Isabella's hands flew to her mouth in performative shock, but her eyes were shining with triumph. My mother beamed. Christopher looked uncomfortable but said nothing. 300 people were staring at me, waiting for me to stand up and confirm this generous, loving gift. And I knew in that moment, if I stayed silent, they won. If I played along, I would spend the rest of my life being steamrolled by my family's demands. So I stood, and I said the one word that would detonate my entire life. "No." The word hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. "No." Simple, monosyllabic, undeniable. 300 faces turned toward me. The applause died like someone had cut the sound cable. My father's expression shifted from triumphant to confused to enraged in the space of 3 seconds. My mother's champagne glass stopped halfway to her lips. Isabella's performative shock melted into something uglier, fury mixed with disbelief. I remained standing, my hands steady at my sides, my voice clear when I continued. "I never agreed to give anyone my Seattle property. My father made this announcement without my knowledge or consent. There is no gift." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered loudly, "Oh my God!" Another voice muttered, "This is awkward." My father's face turned the color of a bruised plum. He set his glass down with such force the stem cracked. "Victoria!" my mother hissed from her seat, her smile frozen in a rictus of social panic. "Sit down. You're making a scene." "I'm correcting a lie. You're ruining your sister's wedding." "No," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Dad did that when he announced a gift that doesn't exist." Isabella stood up, tears already streaming down her carefully made-up face. "Tori, how could you? How could you do this to me? Today of all days?" "I'm not doing anything to you, Bella. I'm protecting what's mine." "It's just a stupid apartment," she shrieked, her voice cracking. "I'm your sister. Don't I matter more than some building?" "It's not just a building. It's my home. And you matter, but that doesn't mean I owe you my property." Christopher stood, placing a hand on Isabella's shoulder. "Maybe we should take this somewhere private." My father cut him off. "There's nothing private about this. Victoria made her decision in front of everyone. Now she can live with the consequences." He moved around the head table, his gait unsteady. I realized with a sinking feeling that he was drunk, not tipsy, drunk. His eyes were glassy, his movements loose and aggressive. "Dad, you've been drinking. Maybe you should sit." "Don't tell me what to do." His voice boomed across the ballroom. "I'm your father. I built everything you have. Everything you are is because of me." "That's not true. You think you're so smart with your law degree and your Manhattan job, but you're nothing without the Castellano name. Nothing." The room was utterly silent now. 300 people watching a family implode in real time. I saw a man in the back, mid-40s, wearing a rumpled suit that didn't match the black tie dress code, raise his phone. The screen glowed with that distinctive red dot. He was streaming this live. I should have walked away, should have left the ballroom, gotten in a car, gone back to my apartment, and let them salvage whatever they could of Isabella's wedding. But something in my father's face, the entitlement, the rage at being defied, made me plant my feet. "I'm not nothing," I said quietly, "and I'm not giving Isabella my penthouse." My father crossed the space between us in 4 strides. I saw his hand come up, registered the movement too late. His fist connected with the left side of my face, with a force that snapped my head sideways. Pain exploded through my orbital bone. I stumbled backward, my heel catching on the hem of my bridesmaid dress. I reached for the table to steady myself, but missed. My body hit the marble floor. The back of my skull cracked against the edge of a centerpiece stand. White-hot agony split through my head. Warm liquid, blood, began pooling beneath me. I heard screaming, distant, underwater, chairs scraping, silverware clattering. My mother's voice. "Vincent, what have you done?" Isabella sobbing, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." And my father's voice now slurred and vicious. "She deserved it. Ungrateful bitch." My vision blurred. The chandeliers above me multiplied, spinning like a kaleidoscope. I tried to sit up, but my body wouldn't respond. My left eye was swelling shut. My head felt like it was splitting open. Someone was kneeling beside me. A woman's voice, calm and professional. "Don't move. Ambulance is coming. Stay with me." I tried to speak, but only managed a rasping sound. The last thing I saw before darkness took me was that phone, still held high, still recording, the red light burning like an accusation. I woke up to the steady beep of a heart monitor and the antiseptic smell of hospital air. For a moment, I didn't remember where I was, didn't remember what had happened. Then I tried to open my eyes and pain screamed through the left side of my face. "Easy," a gentle hand on my shoulder. "You're in Mount Sinai. You've been unconscious for about 40 minutes. I'm Dr. Reina Okoye, head of neurology. Can you tell me your name?" "Victoria," I rasped. My throat felt like I'd swallowed broken glass. "Victoria Castellano." "Good. Do you remember what happened?" Fragments. My father's face, his fist, the floor rushing up, blood. "My father hit me," I whispered. Dr. Okoye's expression remained professionally neutral, but I saw something flicker in her eyes, anger maybe, or disgust. "You have a fractured orbital bone, 17 stitches in your scalp, and a moderate concussion. You're lucky. Another inch, and we'd be talking about permanent vision damage or brain trauma." Lucky. The word was obscene. "You'll need to stay overnight for observation. We're monitoring for intracranial bleeding, but barring complications, you should recover fully in 6 to 8 weeks. She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Ms. Castellano, your injuries are consistent with assault. A police officer is waiting outside to take your statement. I'm required to report this." Assault, the clinical word for what my father had done. "Does my family know I'm here?" "Your mother called multiple times. We've told her you're stable, but not accepting visitors yet. That's your right." "Good." The word came out harder than I intended. "I don't want to see any of them." Dr. Okoye nodded. "I'll let the nurse know. But Victoria, you should know there's been a significant development." She pulled out her phone and turned it toward me. The screen showed a video. My father's face, red with rage, his fist connecting with mine. My body falling, blood spreading across white marble. The video had 1.2 million views in less than an hour. "It was live-streamed," Dr. Okoye said quietly, "by a Bloomberg journalist who was covering high society weddings. It's everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. News outlets are picking it up. There's already a hashtag, Castellano Assault." I stared at the screen. watching myself fall over and over as the video looped. Horror mixed with something else, something cold and calculating, evidence, undeniable, viral, documented evidence. "Can you send me that link?" I asked. Dr. Okoye raised an eyebrow but complied. "The police will want to see it too." "I know." After she left, I lay in the hospital bed, my head pounding, my face throbbing, and pulled up my phone. 827 missed calls, 1,439 text messages, 3,281 emails. I ignored all of them except one number, Marcus Chen, my attorney. I texted, "Are you seeing this?" His response came immediately. "On my way to the hospital. Don't talk to anyone until I get there." 20 minutes later, Marcus swept into my room like an avenging angel in a Tom Ford suit. He was 43, Taiwanese American, and had a reputation for destroying opposing counsel with the precision of a surgeon. "Jesus Christ, Victoria." He took one look at my face, and his jaw clenched. "I'm going to bury him." "Not yet," I said. "I need to think strategically." "Strategically? He fractured your skull on camera in front of 300 witnesses. This is the easiest assault case I've ever seen." "It's not about the assault case. It's about everything else." Marcus pulled up a chair, his expression shifting from fury to focused attention. "Talk to me." I took a breath, wincing as my ribs protested. "My father runs Castellano Properties, 43 buildings across Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens. Assets worth approximately $340 million. He's leveraged to hell. Rumors say he's carrying $180 million in debt from overexpansion during COVID. Rumors? I have friends at competing firms. They talk." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "You think he's financially vulnerable? I know he is, and I know his reputation is everything. Every deal he makes depends on trust, on the Castellano name being synonymous with reliability and discretion." I gestured to my phone, where the video was still playing on mute. That name is currently trending worldwide alongside the phrase violent assault. By tomorrow, it'll be on the front page of every paper in the city. Marcus leaned back, a slow smile spreading across his face. "You want to use this to destroy him financially." "Not destroy, dismantle, piece by piece. Every contract, every partnership, every investor relationship he spent 30 years building. That's ambitious. That's justice." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, studying me. Then he pulled out his laptop. "Okay, let's make a list of his vulnerabilities." We spent the next 2 hours mapping out my father's empire like generals planning a siege. Marcus pulled records, contracts, public filings. I provided insider knowledge from years of Sunday dinners where my father had bragged about deals, complained about difficult partners, mentioned names. We identified 12 major contracts currently in negotiation or pending renewal, 8 key investors who'd expressed concerns about Castellano Properties' debt load, 3 banks holding significant mortgages on properties that were underperforming, and one particularly juicy detail: my father was in the final stages of negotiating a $45 million acquisition of a development site in Williamsburg. The deal was contingent on his ability to secure additional financing, which depended entirely on his reputation and relationships. "If that deal falls apart," Marcus said, "he's looking at a liquidity crisis. He's been counting on flipping that property to cover debt payments on other buildings. So we make sure it falls apart." "Victoria, I have to ask, are you sure about this? Once we start, there's no going back. Your family will never forgive you." I looked at him, my swollen face throbbing, my head wrapped in bandages, my body aching from where I'd hit the marble floor. My family just watched my father assault me and did nothing. Isabella kept crying about her ruined wedding. My mother asked if I could apologize to smooth things over. They don't care about me. They care about appearances. I pulled up the video again. 2.8 million views now. The comments were brutal, calling for my father's arrest, demanding justice, expressing horror and outrage. "This video is my weapon," I said, "and I'm going to use it to burn down everything he built on my back." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then let's get started." The police officer who came to take my statement was a woman in her 50s named Detective Sarah Reyes. She had kind eyes but a steel-trap mind, and she recorded every word I said with the precision of someone who'd testified in court hundreds of times. I gave her the full story: the penthouse, the manipulation, the announcement, the assault. I showed her the video, which now had 4.3 million views. "Ms. Castellano," Detective Reyes said carefully, "this is one of the clearest cases of assault I've seen. Open and shut. But I need to know, are you planning to press charges?" "Absolutely. Your father is Vincent Castellano. He has resources, connections, lawyers. This will get ugly. It's already ugly. He fractured my orbital bone because I wouldn't give my sister my property. What happens next isn't my fault. It's his." Detective Reyes smiled grimly. "Good. I've seen too many women drop charges when family pressure kicks in. Don't be one of them." "I won't." She handed me her card. "Call me if anyone tries to intimidate you. And Ms. Castellano, for what it's worth, I hope you take him for everything he's got." After she left, I checked my phone. The video was at 6.7 million views. The New York Post had published an article: "Real estate mogul Vincent Castellano attacks daughter at Plaza wedding." The Daily News headline read, "Assault at the altar, Manhattan developer's violent outburst caught on camera." Bloomberg ran a think piece: "When family business turns violent, the Castellano scandal and corporate ethics." My father's face was everywhere, and not in the way he'd always dreamed. My mother called 47 times. I blocked her number. Isabella sent a text: "Tori, please, we need to talk. This is destroying our family." I replied, "Dad destroyed our family when he hit me. I'm just making sure everyone knows it." She didn't respond. Christopher's mother, Mrs. Eleanor Ashford, a woman whose family tree included 2 Supreme Court justices and a Secretary of State, sent an email that Marcus forwarded to me. "Dear Ms. Castellano, on behalf of the Ashford family, I want to express our horror at what transpired at the wedding. We were not aware of the circumstances surrounding the property announcement, and had we known, we would never have condoned such manipulation. Your father's behavior was inexcusable. We are suspending all wedding celebrations until this matter is resolved. We stand with you. Eleanor Ashford." I read it 3 times, something tight in my chest loosening slightly. Someone believed me. Someone powerful believed me. Marcus saw my expression and said, "The Ashfords are old money with serious influence. If they're publicly distancing from your father, others will follow. This is good for us." "Us? I'm your attorney. Your fights are my fights. And Victoria, I'm going to enjoy this one." By midnight, I was stable enough that Dr. Okoye cleared me to go home with strict instructions: rest, no screens for more than 20 minutes at a time, follow-up in 3 days. Marcus arranged for a car service and security. "There are paparazzi outside the hospital, reporters. Don't engage. Just get in the car." The walk from the hospital to the waiting SUV was surreal. Cameras flashing, voices shouting questions. "Victoria, are you pressing charges? Did your father apologize? Is it true you refused to give your sister a $2 million property?" I kept my head down, Marcus's hand firm on my elbow, guiding me through the chaos. Inside the car, I finally exhaled. "Welcome to being famous," Marcus said dryly. "How does it feel?" "Like drowning." "Get used to it. This story has everything the media loves: wealth, family drama, violence, a villain everyone can hate. You're going to be the face of standing up to toxic families for the next 6 months." I leaned my head back against the seat, closing my good eye. "I just wanted to keep my penthouse. And now you're a symbol. Use it." My apartment in Tribeca felt like a sanctuary after the chaos. Marcus had arranged for a security guard to be posted in the lobby just in case anyone tried to ambush me there. I took painkillers, crawled into bed, and pulled up my laptop despite Dr. Okoye's orders. The video now had 11.3 million views. News coverage was everywhere. Think pieces about family dynamics and generational wealth. Legal analysts discussing assault charges and civil liability. Social media was an avalanche of support. Team Victoria was trending. People shared their own stories of toxic families, of being pressured to give up things they'd earned, of watching golden child siblings get everything while they got scraps. One comment had 89,000 likes. This is every eldest daughter who was told to sacrifice for the family. We see you, Victoria. Another. Her father tried to steal her home, and when she said no, he tried to steal her safety. Lock him up. I scrolled for hours, reading thousands of messages from strangers who understood in a way my own family never had. Around 3 a.m., Marcus sent a text. Check your email. The dominoes are starting to fall. I opened my inbox. An email from Maxwell Properties, one of my father's key partners on a development in Battery Park. In light of recent events, we are terminating our partnership with Castellano Properties effective immediately. Another from Steinberg Investment Group. We can no longer in good conscience maintain our financial relationship with Vincent Castellano. And the big one, from Williamsburg Development Associates. The acquisition agreement dated October 15th is hereby voided due to material breach of ethical standards. The $45 million deal, gone. I forwarded all three to Marcus with a single word, progress. His response, this is just the beginning. Sleep if you can. Tomorrow we go nuclear. But I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing, building strategy upon strategy. I knew my father's business inside and out. I'd spent years listening to him brag, watching him operate, absorbing the mechanics of his empire. I knew which contracts were most vulnerable, which investors were already nervous, which properties were bleeding money, and I knew exactly how to systematically dismantle everything he'd built. By dawn, I had a plan, and I had the weapon to execute it. A video with 15 million views and climbing, and the righteous fury of an entire internet behind me. My father had spent 30 years building the Castellano name into something powerful. I was going to spend the next 30 days turning it into poison. The first domino fell at 9 a.m. The New York Times published a front-page story. Vincent Castellano, charged with felony assault. Detective Reyes had moved fast. The DA's office, pressured by public outcry and undeniable video evidence, had filed charges within 18 hours. My father was arrested at my parents' penthouse, taken out in handcuffs in front of the building's residents, and a waiting crowd of press. The footage played on every news station. My father, the powerful real estate mogul, looking old and diminished in handcuffs. My mother released a statement through their PR firm. This is a private family matter being sensationalized by the media. Victoria is suffering from stress and has misrepresented the situation. Vincent is a loving father who would never intentionally harm his daughter. The internet response was immediate and vicious. He fractured her skull on camera. Loving father, gaslighting. The mother is just as toxic as the father. By noon, 3 more business partners had pulled out of deals with Castellano Properties. By 2 p.m., the bank holding the mortgage on one of his largest buildings issued a notice of default. By 5 p.m., 2 of his board members resigned. Marcus called me. Victoria, you need to see this. He sent me a link to a press conference. A woman in her 40s, standing at a podium, her voice shaking but determined. My name is Lauren Castellano. I was married to Vincent's brother Anthony, who died 5 years ago. I'm coming forward because what happened to Victoria is not an isolated incident. Vincent has a pattern of using intimidation and violence to control family members. He once broke Anthony's wrist during a business argument. He's emotionally abused his wife for decades. What you saw on that video is who he really is. I sat frozen, watching the screen. Other family members started coming forward. Cousins, former employees, people who'd been too afraid to speak up before, but now saw an opportunity. The floodgates had opened, and my father was drowning. Marcus texted, "You've become the rallying point for everyone he ever hurt. This is bigger than we planned." I replied, "Good, let them speak. Let everyone see exactly who Vincent Castellano is." That night, I received an email from someone I'd never expected to hear from. Christopher Ashford. "Victoria, I want you to know that I had no knowledge of your father's plan to announce the property gift. Had I known, I would have stopped it immediately. Isabella is struggling with all of this. She's torn between her loyalty to your parents and the horror of what she witnessed. I've encouraged her to reach out to you, but she's afraid. I'm sorry for my part in this nightmare. If there's anything I can do to help, please let me know." Christopher. I stared at the email for a long time. Christopher was collateral damage in this war. So was Isabella in a way, even though she'd been complicit in the manipulation. But I couldn't afford sympathy yet, not until this was finished. I replied, "Christopher, I appreciate your message. Tell Isabella that if she wants to repair our relationship, she needs to start by admitting what she knew and when. Until then, I have nothing to say to her." He responded immediately, "Understood. For what it's worth, the Ashford family is appalled by your father's behavior. We're supporting your pursuit of justice." That support would matter. The Ashfords had connections that could open doors or close them. By the end of the first week, my father's empire was in free fall. 12 contracts canceled, 8 investors withdrawn, 3 properties facing foreclosure, legal fees mounting, criminal charges pending, and the story kept growing. Articles about toxic family dynamics, essays about daughters who were expected to sacrifice everything for their siblings, op-eds about violence and accountability. I became a symbol for something larger than myself. And while part of me hated the exposure, another part recognized it as power. Marcus kept me updated on the financial damage. At this rate, Castellano Properties will be insolvent within 6 months. Your father's looking at bankruptcy unless he can pull off a miracle. "He won't," I said, "because every time someone considers working with him, they'll Google his name and find that video." "You're destroying him." "I'm letting him destroy himself. I'm just making sure everyone watches." But even as my father's empire crumbled, I felt the weight of what I'd unleashed. My mother sent a final email before I blocked her completely. "I hope you're satisfied, Victoria. You've destroyed this family. Your father is ruined. Isabella's marriage is in jeopardy, all because you couldn't be generous for one day." I stared at those words, feeling their intended sting. Then I replied, "No, Mom. Dad destroyed this family when he decided my property was his to give away. He ruined himself when he fractured my skull on camera. And Isabella's marriage is in jeopardy because she married into a family that has ethics. This is all his doing, not mine." I hit send and blocked her email permanently. The next morning I received a visitor I didn't expect. Marcus called from the lobby. "Victoria, there's someone here to see you. Says her name is Diana Chen, CEO of Meridian Development Group." I froze. Meridian was one of the largest real estate development firms on the East Coast. Diana Chen was a legend, the woman who'd broken into the Boys Club of Manhattan real estate and built an empire that rivaled the old guard. "Send her up." Diana Chen was 58, elegant in a charcoal suit, her silver hair cut in a sharp bob. She looked at my bruised face with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Ms. Castellano, I'm sorry to intrude during your recovery, but I wanted to speak with you before the media circus gets any worse." "About what?" "About your future." She sat down in my living room without being invited, the move of someone used to owning every space she entered. "I've been watching your father's collapse with great interest, and I've been looking into your background. Columbia Law, Sullivan and Cromwell, senior associate with a specialization in real estate transactions." "That's correct." "You're wasted there. You should be building, not just facilitating. I blinked. I'm sorry? I'm offering you a position at Meridian, VP of Acquisitions. You'd be overseeing deals like the ones your father used to close, but ethically, with a team, with resources your current firm can't match. I sat down slowly. Why? Diana smiled. Because you just proved you're the kind of woman who can't be intimidated. You stood up to Vincent Castellano and survived. That takes spine. I need people with spine. And it doesn't hurt that hiring me would be a PR coup during my father's scandal. That too, she admitted. But mostly, I think you're brilliant and underutilized, and I'd like to give you an opportunity to build something of your own instead of watching your father's empire burn. The offer hung in the air, a lifeline, a future. I'll need to think about it, I said. Take your time. But Victoria, don't let revenge consume you. I've seen it destroy people more ruthless than you. At some point, you need to decide if you want to be defined by what he did to you or by what you build after. After she left, I sat in my apartment with her business card in my hand, Marcus's words echoing in my head. This is just the beginning. But beginning of what? A career? A crusade? A life spent punishing the man who'd hurt me? I looked out at the Manhattan skyline, the city glittering in the afternoon sun, and felt the weight of choice settling over me. My father had attacked me. The world had seen it. Justice was unfolding exactly as I'd planned. But Diana Chen was right. At some point, I needed to decide who I was going to be after this was over. The woman who destroyed her father, or the woman who built something better than anything he'd ever imagined. I didn't have the answer yet, but I knew one thing for certain. I was done being the forgotten daughter, and whatever came next, it would be on my terms.